Okay, thank you. Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Esise, and I'm Chief of Operations with the IDEG. I am pleased to welcome you all to this morning's program on the theme of women's inclusion in governance and the importance of the affirmative action law. This is a program that is sponsored with the kind courtesy of the EU delegation in Ghana, and we are highly appreciative of this support. I welcome you all. I also welcome those who are joining us online by Zoom or streaming online. Our program this morning will be moderated by a senior research officer with the IDEG. She is Ms. Na Ansakwa. She is an academic with a keen interest in issues of gender and development and the nexus between development and the use of ICTs. She's a passionate advocate for women's participation and for the rights of those who are marginalized and excluded. Please join me to welcome Ms. Na Ansakwa.
The Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Alban Bagbin, distinguished members of the Diplomatic Corps, there are a number of you here, so I won't start by distinguishing by names. Respected members of the Coalition for Affirmative Action, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen of the media, our friends who are joining online. Today is one of the happiest days in my life. I'm so excited to see an institution which has not been traditionally known to champion the cause of women, like IDEG, championing a cause which women have fought for years. I remember my days as an undergraduate student when I sat at the feet of Emerita Professor Elizabeth Adefio-Shandroff, and I pray she gets to see this wherever she is, to know that the work which NCWD began in 1975, the work which Annie Giagi and her people started, the work which the likes of Gladys Asma, Grace Coleman, Elizabeth Gunn, all these people fought. They didn't live to see this day. They didn't live to see an organization like IDEG championing the cause of women. And so if I say I'm excited, there's a reason. And also because IDEG has always shown an interest in inclusivity, but today it wants to make a very bold statement that it also wants to be associated with the fight for the quick adoption of the affirmative action law. The bill has been pending for a long time now, and we look forward to seeing it ratified in Parliament within the shortest possible time. I'm so excited the Right Honorable Speaker made it here in person himself, and so he's very welcome. Everyone invited here is very special. I can make out the faces of a lot of the gender advocates, and so I won't attempt mentioning anyone's name because I don't want to leave anyone out. I want to acknowledge your presence. I want to acknowledge your interest in participating. Even more importantly are those who have taken time off to view us online. And so although they couldn't participate in person due to the COVID issues and for other commitments, they are viewing online, they are paying close attention to whatever is transpiring here. And so we welcome them as well. The first time I had to speak in public, I had to give a presentation at a conference. I finished preparing, I rehearsed and everything. Just before I stepped out, I was given a friendly piece of advice. And today reminds me of it. I was told that you've prepared all you can. Know that at the point when you are presenting, you are the expert on the topic. But know that whoever comes to sit in your session comes to sit in because the person has more knowledge or the same level of knowledge as you do. And so if you know you do not know anything, don't pretend to know. Admit that you don't know and ask and learn. Today, we are privileged to have a lot of our gender champions here. And so this is the opportunity to learn at their feet. This is the opportunity to interact with them. This is the opportunity to interact with the Honorable Speaker of Parliament, who has himself been an MP for a long time. And to have all our questions and concerns about the Affirmative Action Bill addressed. And so those online, don't feel marginalized. You're also very welcome to post your questions online. We'll address them during the interactive session. At this stage, I'd invite the boss of IDEG, my boss, Dr. Emmanuel Akwete, to give us his opening remarks. Afterwards, Her Excellency, the EU Ambassador to Ghana, Mrs. Dinah Akonsia, would give her short address, and then I'll come back to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Moderator. I should indicate that the ambassador is ably represented here by the Deputy Ambassador of the EU, because she's on a mission with the President to the EU. And we have only 10 minutes to share between us. It means the moderator says we shouldn't say much. And so, may I welcome you all. The Right Honorable Speaker, welcome to this event. We're grateful. And to all of you. This is the second event IDEG is hosting together with the European Union. But before I give the details, I would also like to crave your indulgence. The Institute has lost one of his professors, Professor S.N. Wood, who would be laid to rest tomorrow. May I ask, crave your indulgence to give him 30 minutes silence to observe. Sorry, 30 seconds, I'm sorry. You could see in that mood, you can, 30 seconds, just to honor him. Thank you. We may take our seats. Thank you. The first time we did this joint collaborative event with the EU, we were looking at inclusiveness, because we think marginalization and exclusion ultimately underdevelops a country and could become the source of violence. And so we've been passionate about exploring broadly ways of promoting inclusiveness, not only in our country but beyond. And for the major group and powerful groups who feel marginalized and have been speaking for a long time, it's not only women. We have chiefs also complaining they are marginalized. We have the youth, people living with a disability, and probably those who have not yet articulated their situation. And so we set out looking at how this can be done. And for us, we think that the law is important, and we are passionate about working together with the women's groups who have courageously and consistently pushed for the enactment of this bill and have done great work. Since 2004, when the Women's Manifesto was published, we look frequently at it to inform our own perspectives on the issues. At this event, however, much as we are talking about the bill and how we could get it enacted, the President, in his State of the Nation address in March, said this time around he hopes it will be delivered. And we are happy to support the various processes and also the organizations, the advocates of this bill to succeed this time around. But we also hold the firm view that given the experiences of law making, it takes a very long time, and also its implementation and its enforcement. Women, 30% of the 30% appointed positions in the assembly were supposed to go to women. But we are now in the 33rd year of the local government system, and close to 30 years when it was incorporated in the 1992 Constitution, and it didn't happen. So the question I keep asking is, when the law is not complied with or it's not being enforced, what do you do? And I think it's pertinent to ask this question because the Right Honorable Speaker, it's here. And we think it needs to be complemented. This law needs to be complemented. We think that because of the risk that the experience we've had so far, laws will be made but not executed, not in a way that addresses the problems they're supposed to address effectively. We also have to look at structural reforms. Structural reforms that will say that we could expand the spaces for women's representation, not only in Parliament and not only in the fewer spaces in the Cabinet, but in the whole executive arm, spaces could be created, especially at the executive local government level as well. And it's a campaign we must pursue so that these places will be opened up as well. And there are various formulas that can be adopted to increase the number of women's representation in local government, not only in the assemblies as chief executives, but in a whole variety of places. It is the work we're doing, and we hope that we would have enough basis to collaborate and have the women's organizations joining us in this course, because this is the best time that we could have far-reaching reforms in local government. We also must look at the reform of the political parties, because they are important organizations. We have made them focus more on elections, but they're also development organizations, and all the transformational cases of good transformation of economy, social development, and whatever, industrialization, modernization, and so on, involves parties. And there's the need to look at those areas too. I think women in Ghana have the power to bring about these changes. It is not, we shouldn't depend so much on the political will of the politicians, and I'm not including the Right Honorable Speaker. He's here with you. I think he supports this cause. Often I hear cases of it's political will that is not making the men act. But I think in a democracy, you also have power. Your numbers themselves equip you. And your ideas in shaping and opening spaces is important. Politicians respect power and the numbers, because in elections, that determines whether they will come to power or not. So I think the opportunity to bring about structural reforms in local government and the opportunity to also reform political parties are opportunities for the women's organizations also to get involved and exercise their power and demand what they want, because ultimately the politicians will depend on their power to win elections. I think we should reflect on this and know that we need the two, the structural reforms and the passage of this important, all-important bill to ensure that whatever happens, the path would have been opened for real effective representation and leadership of women in our country. We believe that will be transformational and will move the country forward. So I thank you very much for honoring our invitation, and welcome to this session.
You have prepared. Okay. Next, we'll take the address from the representative of the EU ambassador to Ghana. And so, you're welcome.
I take this off for the speaking, yes. Good morning, everybody. Right Honorable Speaker, Dr. Emmanuel, Executive Director of IDEG, also my condolences for your loss in the organization. Members of the diplomatic corps, I see Rwanda, Spain, Denmark, Israel, Colombia. Bienvenidos. Honorable Francisca Oteng, the chairperson, the convener of the Coalition on Affirmative Action, the director, Abantu for Development, the former Minister of Gender. I hope and trust with this I observed all protocol. And allow me to start by apologizing. I am not Diana Aconcha. She is right now in Brussels with the president. I'm not an excellency either, and I'm a man, so sorry for all of that. But still, I will here develop the opening address on behalf of the European Union. I'm very honored to be here, and I'm very glad to see so many women and men here united for this cause. Liberia, Tanzania, the Central African Republic, Argentina, Costa Rica, Bangladesh, India, South Korea, Denmark, Germany, Lithuania, Norway, the UK, New Zealand, and yes, also the European Union. All of these have or had female presidents, leader of government, and prime ministers. So the list is rather long. And it's true. In more than a century of action to improve women's political rights, a lot has been achieved. After all, it's not that long ago that Emmeline Pankhurst said, quoting male politicians of her time, "The fact is, the home is the place for women. Their interests are the rearing and training of children. Politics have nothing to do with these things, and therefore politics do not concern women." This is a long time ago. And it's not that long ago that Dolores Ibarruri, better known as La Pasionaria, said, "We were supposed to dedicate ourselves wholly to giving birth, to raising our children, and to serving our husbands who, for the most part, treated us with complete disregard." So yes, there has been tremendous progress. Women got the vote, and laws made by men are now luckily also made by women. But the list where we never had a female leader at the top is sadly longer. One could cite many also modern countries in Europe, such as France, my own country, the Netherlands, Spain, and many countries in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And yes, also here in Ghana. So a lot can still be done. Here in Ghana, women are still significantly underrepresented in elected positions. Just look at the stats, and I have a feeling they will be repeated a number of times today. 51.7% of registered Ghanaian voters are women. In parliament, there are a mere 14.5%. Ghana's recent parliamentary election have seen a slight increase from 37 to 40 female members of parliament, a very modest improvement. In the previous government, 20% of deputy ministers were women. With this, Ghana ranked 150th in the world in terms of women representation, behind other African countries like Rwanda, Ethiopia, and Uganda. So we are a bit away from the UN SDG Sustainable Development Goal on gender equity. As you know, we had an EU observation mission which was quite successful and concluded on the successful elections. But also they recommended that Ghana should enact and implement the Affirmative Action Bill, with at least 30% quota of women in governance and decision-making positions, in the end leading to a progressive increase of 50%. It's also encouraged political parties to adopt party quota to promote women's participation in politics, because equality starts at party level, also at the primaries. And it is urgent, because when we continue with this pace, someone calculated 1% improvement every electoral cycle, we will have only gender parity somewhere far in the year 2160. So, we cannot and should not rely on social change alone. In Europe, women's representation in parliaments has significantly improved, and we will hear later from one of the distinguished speakers about it, in countries where special measures have been in place. For instance, in France, they have adopted legislation supporting gender parity in elected offices, and it has recorded one of the largest increase in the EU in the share of women parliamentarians. So, let us pause for a moment and ask, why is this important for us? Why does this matter? The question is evidently one of equity and human rights. Or, as one very strong woman once put it, human rights are women's rights, and women's rights are human rights. It is also a matter of democratic governance. In order to be responsive to all citizens, political institutions should be inclusive of the major groups that exist within the population. Making up over half of society, women surely qualify. Women's participation brings in different perspectives, different viewpoints, broader responsiveness. Women raise new issues, offer innovative solutions. Their participation often leads to increased cooperation across party lines. Most recently, female leaders, such as Jacinda Ardern from New Zealand, have been praised for their handling and effective handling of the COVID-19 crisis. Evidently, there is also a variety among women, and different women will prioritize different issues. What is certain is that when women are sidelined, vast amount of capacity and skills are being abandoned. Furthermore, women in leadership and governance accelerate the advancement and development of society for a more robust and solid economy. As Kofi Annan put it, there is no tool for development more effective than the empowerment of women. No other policy is as likely to raise economic productivity or to reduce child and maternal mortality. No other policy is as sure to improve nutrition and promote health. And no other policy is as powerful in increasing the chances of education for the next generation. So with Kofi Annan, back to Ghana. Here, luckily, we don't lack competent women. Allow me to mention just a few. Ms. Joyce Adeline Bamford-Addo, first woman justice of the Supreme Court of Ghana and first woman Speaker of Parliament. Madame Sophia Akufo, Chief Justice of Ghana. And of course, Professor Nana Jane Apoku, academic icon and first woman to hold the position of Vice Chancellor before becoming the first vice presidential candidate for one of the main parties. And then, lastly, the late Dr. Mrs. Esther Oklo of Nucleno Industries, a national legend who created employment for so many people. Hence, there is obvious indication that Ghana has strong and competent women. The question, therefore, is what exactly holds back progress? Why is stronger female representation in politics so difficult? What are the challenges that women face in rising to the top political positions? We know some of the issues, and we will discuss them further in detail. They stem from structural and barriers. They might include factors such as unequal access to resources, such as time and money. It's not only about money, it's also unequal family responsibilities, and sometimes we should also mention misogynistic comments in the not always. We can and should address these issues by tackling the high cost and monetization of politics, adopting affirmative action bill, fighting bad speech and women-unfriendly discourse, both online and offline. It will be no easy task. It will require patience, perseverance and courage. But together, men and women working together, we will get there. Change is possible when you put your mind to it. I'm almost finalizing, Madam Chair. I just brought this as a former speechwriter. It's a book of speeches, many beautiful speeches, hundreds of them, and just wanted to say only a couple of them held by women. So also internationally, a lot still to be done. But I'm convinced women are change agents, and I believe that Ghana would be even better if it gave women roles that are more prominent in politics. The solutions are not outside, they are right with us. We will find, where we find the challenges, we will also find the solutions. I should like to thank by thanking Dr. Emmanuel from IDEG, also from my own organization, WIDAT, for the good work, and Ewald. And we are very privileged to have the Right Honorable Speaker here with us on this endeavor. I wish you all successful discussions, and I would like to thank everybody for coming, also those following us online. Thank you all.
As I've said already, our panelists, all the people who will talk today, are people who are already in the limelight. And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time introducing them, saying giving long speeches about who they are and all that. But I'll briefly introduce our keynote speaker, given the fact that he's our keynote speaker. Everyone knows him, and the fact that regarding Ghanaian parliament, he's definitely one to be described as a Mugabe of parliament. From the first to the 8th parliament, he's always been present. Pardon? McQueen. McQueen, no, we are in Africa. Yes, sir. At your behest, what you want, I'll give to you. Oh, no. We are looking at the positive side because it's our in-law. On that note, what I really want to say is that he's been a friend of IDEG for as long as I can remember. Whenever we've had a program, at short notice, sometimes without even getting to understand whatever is being said, he comes. And today, as I said, is one of the most exciting days for me because we are going to really have him and ask him, Daddy, so when are we getting what we want? When are we getting the reason why we are here? And so, on that note, I'll quickly invite Mr. Alban Bagbin, the Right Honorable Speaker of Ghana's Parliament. Sir, your audience.
Madam Moderator, sorry if I ruffled you. I didn't mean to do that. But just to move away from the perception and negative connotations of President Mugabe. My predecessor in Parliament ordered that term should not be used in reference to me. He really brought the illustrious senator of the US, McQueen, as the one that should be used to refer to me. So it's information I have to share. I'm not too good at formal speeches. Unfortunately, I'm now a speaker, and I'm compelled just to be doing that. I like viva voce exchanges with people, but I'm told that I'm the keynote speaker, so I'm compelled to go by a script. And forgive me if I'm not following the script very well. I'm still learning. Madam Moderator, I hope our Honorable Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection is here. Some members of Parliament, the Executive Director of IDEG. I wish I was a member of IDEG. Members of the diplomatic community, our hard-working members of the Coalition on Affirmative Action, and representatives of women's groups, our distinguished invited guests, media partners, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to you all. I appreciate the thought of the invitation from the European Union and the Institute for Democratic Governance to me to participate in this seminar. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity to share a few words on a topic so very dear to my heart. I find the theme of the seminar, Strengthening Women Inclusion in Governance, and the urgency of the Affirmative Action Bill, progress, challenges, and the way forward most reassuring. It is a strong indication that the issues of inclusion, diversity, and gender are still on the front burner of civil society organizations in the country. This is really encouraging as we go through the process of considering the passage of the Affirmative Action Bill. Many of you don't know, but I was the counsel for the Women Caucus in Parliament for many, many years, starting from the late Hawa Yakubu through Honorable Mrs. Ama Benyuado to Gladys Asma and the rest. So this is a topic that I'm very, very passionate about. Madam Moderator, just about 2 months ago, precisely on the 24th of March 2021, I participated in a remote conference with my counterpart in Lomé, Togo, a female Speaker of Parliament, on a campaign of women emancipation on the theme, and I quote, "When African Women Lead." The similarity between that seminar and today's event is striking, except that with today's seminar, I am informed that the EU and IDEG want to hear from me on the state of the Affirmative Action Bill. This is an area where experts and other major stakeholders here can provide a lot more information on. I will, however, oblige you a few comments on that area. But before then, Madam Moderator, permit me as a keynote speaker to point out that consciously and deliberately, we need to create opportunities for women in various leadership roles. And this is not a favor to women. It is a benefit to us all as individuals, communities, societies, and nations. This is what the famous Dr. James Emmanuel Agri meant when he said, and I want to quote it rightly, "The surest way to keep people down is to educate the men and neglect the women." If you educate a man, you simply educate an individual. But if you educate a woman, you educate a whole nation. This statement has often been misquoted without the premisal statement, which said the surest way to keep people down is to educate the men and neglect the women. And that is exactly what is happening. Education is about what? Empowerment. So the surest way to keep people down is to empower the men and neglect the women. And that is what is happening, not only in Ghana, but many places in the world. And so I want to call on all of us to start quoting this statement properly. It was not just meant to convince the Governor Gordon Gorgesberg to start the establishment of co-educational institutions. That was not it. He was forcefully drawing our attention as a continent. And you know why he was in Africa. He was sent as one of the leaders of a group from the US to come and tour Africa and to try to draw the attention of Africans to the importance and critical need of education. And he really did tour many African countries. That is one of the illustrious sons of Ghana that we usually ignore, and then we talk about this later day since. You know, he was advocating for something deeper than just establishment of co-educational institutions. And the focus was on the development and empowerment of women. We all know the influence of women in leadership. And I don't think I'll belabor the point, but just let me draw your attention to a few research data that is readily available to all of you. There is a lot of research data that suggests that the more the number of women in the boardroom and senior management positions, the better the profitability of the organizations as well as its impact on society. The Global Leadership Forecast 2014 to 2015 concluded that, and I quote, "Gender diversity in leadership pool means greater diversity of thought, which in turn leads to improved problem solving and greater business benefits," unquote. Quorum Analysis, a research firm in the US, in its research last year, found that women are better at making deals than their male peers, collaborating and working across party lines in greater numbers than men. And it's very, very evident even in our parliament in Ghana. The women are better in cross-party networking and discussion than the men. Again, equitable participation of women in our democratic governance is a collective responsibility. The executive, judiciary, political parties, civil society organizations, and even the electoral management body all have a role to play. In fact, I must say I'm very disappointed this morning because I've seen mostly women in this seminar than men. It is not a woman problem. It's a societal problem. And in fact, the main challenge is the man and nothing else. It's the man. And we need to break into the mind of that man to get the solution. But at the end of the day, unless Parliament enacts the appropriate legislation to advance this crucial democratic cause, the goal of giving our women their well-deserved place in leadership, and more particularly in governance, cannot be attained. The Parliament of Ghana has fully accepted this responsibility to give legislative push to women's full and free participation in our nation's governance. I really admire the advocacy of women. And in this regard, I wish to express my deepest appreciation to civil society organizations in our country whose consistent or perhaps persistent advocacy has kept both the executive and legislative alive to their responsibility of giving our women their rightful place in the governance of our country. I particularly want to mention the Coalition for Women's Manifesto, which I know is hosted by Abantu for Development, as well as the Affirmative Action Coalition, which for years has been piling the pressure to ensure that the bill is enacted into law. Today, I can assure you that the bill seeks the bill which seeks to attain 50-50 representation for men and women in parliament over time is before the cabinet for validation. We shall give it the priority attention it deserves to ensure its passage before the end of the year. The executive urgently wants it passed, and our lawmakers are equally eager to make this happen. But let me say a few words about women leadership in Ghana. In spite of all what you said about the early women leaders, people like to cite Yaa Asantewaa and the rest. Maybe they even forget about the amazings of Benin, the early or later days leaders like Nana Konadu Agyemang-Rawlings, who really fought a lot. And then in Parliament I mentioned the lone voice, the late Hawa Yakubu, on the floor of Parliament. You recall that. But even before her, we had the late Susanna Alassane during the Nkrumah regime, and many, many others. And the women have done everything to show that they are capable leaders, if not more capable than the men. But unfortunately, what is still the state of women leadership in Ghana today? And now, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me look at the situation of women's participation in our governance today. Ghana, the first country to gain political independence in sub-Saharan Africa after World War II, and today's beacon, so we claim, of democracy on the continent, is not in a very good place as far as women's involvement in our governance is concerned. Ghana stands at number 141 in global ranking in terms of women's representation in parliament, and number 36 in Africa. In local governance, the picture is more depressing, as only 7% of our elected members are women. In terms of ministerial appointments for women, our country has fared no better, the figure being just as low as the local government representation. This means the minimum of 30% representation for women in governance, which the UN has set, has not been met in Ghana. Unfortunate. But just a small glimpse of hope is what happened in the 2020 elections. In the current 8th Parliament, there are 40 women, MPP 20, NDC 20. It's not only 137 plus one independent. We are also having 20. The hung parliament is good for me. And so the number has just inched up from 38 in the 7th Parliament to 40 in the 8th Parliament. This brings the percentage of women's representation to approximately 14.5%. The question then is, why are we so concerned in Ghana about enhanced participation of women in governance? The sincere answer is that it is a constitutional imperative. Anyone who has taken the trouble to study the 1992 Constitution will appreciate the spirit that runs through the Constitution. A Constitution that talks about justice and equality. We therefore cannot run a governance system that deprives of women of justice and equality. In Chapter 6, the Dietary Principles of State Policy, Article 37(1) enjoins the state to endeavor to secure and protect a social order founded on the values and principles of freedom, equality, and justice. Article 35(6)(b) is even more specific, since it enjoins the state to take the appropriate measures to achieve reasonable regional and gender balance in recruitment and appointment to public offices. Ladies and gentlemen, beyond the constitutional obligation, we know that women in Ghana are more than half the population, and depriving them of a place in governance is tantamount to depriving more than half of our people a direct voice in governance. Besides, no one can claim to know and appreciate the problems of women better than women themselves. When women become equally involved in governance, they can articulate the problems of women better than men who currently dominate our decision-making process. After all, he who feels it knows it better. Women in governance will be excellent role models for the Ghanaian girl child and young woman to aspire to higher levels in politics. There can be no argument whatsoever about the fact that our democracy will only be as strong and effective as the participation of women in decision-making. When the participation of women is weak and ineffective, our democracy will also remain weak and ineffective. As lucidly put by Ngugi wa Thiong'o, and I quote, "The condition of women in the nation is the real measure of its progress." And so the claim that we'll be making in Ghana, we are developing, we are model, we are what and what, please, let's re-evaluate ourselves and the conditions in the country. In spite of the strong and compelling case for the inclusion of women in governance, Ghana still lags behind many African countries in women's representation. The plain truth is that under our current system, the responsibility of sending more women to parliament rests with the political parties and voters, which meant we need to go beyond that, just dependent on only the parties and the voters. And some of the things we all know is the kind of political system we run. Using the mixed proportional representation system will not do any harm to us, and therefore we need to relook at some of the legal framework that we have in the country. If the parties, as we are believing, decide to fill more women candidates, perhaps Parliament may likely be able to get a higher percentage of women. But even in Parliament itself, what is the position there? Women leadership in Parliament. Madam Moderator, one area where the low women representation in Parliament has been a bit disappointing is the number of women in leadership positions in the House. In the current Parliament, the number of women in leadership positions is very, very low. Only 10% of committee chairpersons are women, while 6.6% of vice chairpersons are women. Women hold 3.3% of ranking member positions and 16.7% of deputy ranking member positions. The ranking and deputy ranking come from the opposition party. The chair and deputy chair comes from the party in government. This has absolutely nothing to do with political parties and voters. As a result, Parliament is currently revising its rules, and I, as the leader of the House, meaning the House here, the Parliament as an institution, intends to ensure that we do better. As a member of the Commonwealth, Ghana's parliament is bound by the Commonwealth Charter adopted by all members in 2012, which states that, I quote, "We recognize that gender equality and women's empowerment are essential components of human development and basic human rights," unquote. Flowing from this statement, the Commonwealth Women Parliamentarians states, and I quote, "Commonwealth women parliamentarians will promote the representation of women in Commonwealth Parliamentary Association branches and women's full and equal participation in political and parliamentary leadership at all levels," unquote. It is a pity that Ghana, an active member of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, has not yet fulfilled this commitment. Looking at the UN mandate on the 30% representation of women, and I want to quote a number of figures there. According to the recent Interparliamentary Union publication, I served in the Parliamentary Union for over 12 years in leadership positions. 12 African countries have achieved the UN mandated minimum of 30% women representation in parliament as at 1st January 2021. These countries include Rwanda, 61.3%, Burundi, 38.2%, Senegal, 43%, Cameroon, 33.9%, Ethiopia, 38.8%, Namibia, 44.2%, Tanzania, 36.7%, Uganda, 34.9%, Zimbabwe, 31.9%, and South Africa, 45.8%. Ghana is what? 14.4%. 0.5%. Yet you claim you are a model democracy in Africa. After this seminar, tell your colleagues outside they should stop using that term. We are not. We used to lead, but we are now far behind. In all these countries, the quota system is the key. And I'm an unrepentant supporter of the quota system. I've always fought for it, and I'll continue to fight for it. The way we are going, if we don't re-look at these issues, and we depend on some misunderstanding of what democracy means, we will never get there. And that is why, for me, Ghana's parliament, we're looking forward seriously to the passage of the Affirmative Action Bill, which aims at offering women 50% quota. I hope you will support us. When passed, the law will ensure that over time, Ghana will take its place among the countries with the highest women representation in decision-making institutions. The Ghana Parliament has the will, and we have the capacity to pass the law in good time. After all, Ghana was the first independent African country to introduce the quota system for women in parliament. In 1959, the Ghana Parliament passed the Representation of the People Women Members Act, which enabled the president to increase the number of women in parliament to 10 in 1960. And we all benefited from it. Why not today? Ladies and gentlemen, with all this early best practice and legal imperatives, how come that Ghana has since 1998, when the guidelines on the Affirmative Action Bill were passed by Cabinet, still not passed the law? 1998, following the footsteps of the Right to Information Bill. This has largely been attributed to the low commitment on the part of some stakeholders, including Parliament, towards pushing for the passage of the bill into law. The story has been always revision, revision, and revision. They are always revising the law. And I just told you, Cabinet will have to validate it before it's brought to Parliament. We are following some old British practice where legislation before Parliament dies with the Parliament. And so all the bills they put before us, immediately we end a 4-year term. The bills also end a 4-year term. I don't know where this is coming from. And therefore, they have to go back, I'm told, to the new government, even if it is not a new government, to relook at it, revise it, and then bring it back. And you know the bureaucratic inertia. It takes a long time before it comes back to Parliament. And when it comes back to Parliament, because we are always cap in hand, doing lala sulala, begging around, more priority is placed on approving loans than passing bills, particularly bills that don't immediately bring the low fruits, you know. And so we have been in this vicious cycle for some time. I think one thing that I learned early in life is not to find fault, but to find remedy. It is therefore my firm commitment, and I believe that of the 8th Parliament of the 4th Republic, to find remedy to the passage of this bill as early as is presented to the House. I would like to conclude by reassuring you that Parliament will work hard in partnership with you all to ensure that the enactment of the Affirmative Action Bill be not delayed any longer. Parliament will also do all it can to ensure that leadership positions occupied by women in Parliament is commensurate with women's representation in the House. At least we have 14.5% there. And so if that reflects in all the areas of leadership, I think it will do the Parliament good. Parliament, as I said, will also do all it can to ensure that the leadership positions occupied by women in Parliament is commensurate with women's representation in the House. I want to take this opportunity to commend civil society organizations in Ghana highly for their consistent advocacy and support for progressive legislation such as the Affirmative Action Bill, the Domestic Violence Bill, and the Right to Information Act. In fact, I've caused some research work on these bills to let us get a feedback as why the country is struggling to implement them. If there's anything that we can do to revise and refine the legislation, we'll do so. I've received a report on the domestic violence bill. There's a lot of research on it. There are a lot of, some imposed hurdles here and there. We'll try to entangle them and then find solutions to those bills. I applaud the efforts of particularly the Affirmative Action Coalition, the Coalition on the Right to Information, Ghana, and the Coalition for Women's Manifesto for their unrelenting advocacy that has brought the Affirmative Action Bill to its current stage. The AU Parliament will strengthen its collaboration with civil society organizations as one of its strategic objectives to deepen democracy in Ghana and ensure that our country does not lose its position as the beacon of democracy on the continent. We should never forget the wise saying that ability may take you to the top, but it takes character to keep you there. It is the expectation of Parliament that today's discussion will produce concrete recommendations to ensure the expeditious passage as well as the effective implementation of the affirmative action law. As with this, I want to thank you all and wish you a very fruitful deliberation. May the good Lord continue to bless Ghana. Thank you so much.
I told you we had the right people here. Interesting points from the Right Honorable Speaker's reflections. He mentioned the fact that the 40%, 40 women, the 14.5. I encouraged myself by saying 15%. I round it up. The 15% that we have, that's our highest so far. And what excites me is the fact that out of 48 women who contested, 40 of them made it. And so it means people are now getting the confidence, and with time, we are going to have good news. Pardon? And another thing which came up is when he mentioned the issue of the hung parliament. And it's one of the things we'll talk about during our deliberations today. How is the current hung parliament going to work to promote the cause of ensuring that this law is implemented, is enacted as soon as possible? And so we'll discuss that when the time is up. We are running very our time, we are fast behind time, and so I'm going to quickly invite the panelists, the Ghanaian panelists, to come up front. Ideally, what it says on the program is that they were all supposed to give short speeches. But given how fast spent time is, I'd quickly invite them to the top, and we'll sort of start the panel discussion afterwards. Mr. Alban Bagbin, the Right Honorable Speaker, I guess is asking permission to take leave of us at this moment. But even before he does so, I'll quickly continue with my introduction so that the panelists can come and sit up. And we start. As I said, I'm not going to Is he leaving? Oh, okay. He wants to sit in front so that the panelists can come up. Okay. We're having the Ghanaian panelists come up first, and they are going to tell us about what the current situation on the Affirmative Action Bill is. As I said, I want to remind you that we have a very large population listening online. And so there are many people listening and pay attention to what we are doing. And for the information of those who are listening and do not know what the affirmative action policy is about, or what we mean when we say affirmative action, we are talking about equalizing the tracks and removing the unjust barriers that obstruct pathways to progression that only some runners are confronted with, policies that promote inclusion and are designed to equalize the conditions of an otherwise unfair race and give everyone an equal chance to participate. At this point, I'm going to invite the Ghanaian panelists to come and tell us their story. The first person I'm going to invite, as I said, they are all very known people, and we are running behind time. And so I'll just say something very brief about each person, a sentence or two, and that's it. And I'm inviting all the Ghanaian panelists to come at once so that we can quickly finish. I think the meat of the whole program will be when we interact. And so I'll give them just a few minutes to come up front. I think from what I can see being done, I might as well invite the ambassadors who are here. And so, Her Excellency, Dr. Isa. Not now. When it's time, I'll tell you. Not now. For now, the Ghanaians are going. I was going to say that get ready. You would go after they have. Your seats will be there. The first person I'll invite up front is the convener of the Affirmative Action Bill, the Affirmative Action Committee. Her Excellency, Madam Shilaminka Premu, a distinguished lawyer in her own right. As I said, I'm not going to tell you the things which you will Google and find. And so, what I'll say about Mrs. Minka Premu is the fact that she was one of the behind-the-scenes lawyers for one of the parties which challenged the electoral dispute in court. They hid her behind the scenes, but at the last minute when they were being criticized for not involving women, they confessed that she was one of the brains behind them. I'm privileged to meet you, and it's a joy to sit at your feet and learn today. Whenever you hear of the Women's Manifesto, you remember the role Abantu played. Net right, Abantu conveying people and ensuring that things were done in 2004. Around that time, we were in our final year as undergrads, and as I said, we sat in the Gender and Development class and discussed a lot of issues regarding how the Women's Manifesto was going to impact Ghanaian women. I'm humbled to think of the fact that it's been 15 years. I didn't realize time has flown by so fast. But I'd invite a princess of Adanse. I said I'm not going to give the conventional introductions which you will find online. And so, Dr. Mrs. Rosemary Sakutin, you are welcome. One of the nicest things in Ghana, it's very common to be called Na, to be called Nana, to be called Ni, and all that. One of the nicest things is to know that when you mention someone who is Nana, and automatically everyone can identify who the Nana is, and especially if you add the second name. The person I'm calling next is someone who has owned her name. Once you mention whatever is associated with the Nana, you don't need anything else. As soon as you mention Nanoye, everyone knows who Nanoye is. I first got to know her when she mobilized her mates to support one of them who unfortunately passed away. Ghana's Nanoye. As I said, I acknowledge the presence of all the distinguished gender activists sitting down. And I know that you also have a lot of information, even if no more. But these are going to lead our discussions for now. They'll briefly tell us about what the processes have been so far, and then we proceed. As I said, we are short on time, so they'll spend just about 5 minutes. They'll introduce, give very brief remarks, and then our Rwandan and Spanish ambassadors will come and give us their experiences, and we'll start the interaction. We are not doing too well on time, so yes. So, Madam Convener, if you'd like to start.
Right Honorable Speaker, Your Excellencies, the IDEG team, colleagues, and all protocols observed. The Affirmative Action Bill Coalition is very thankful that we've been invited to join this very important program, which is being supported by IDEG and the European Union. We've already had a lot of background information as to the basis for the Affirmative Action Bill, so I'm not going to go there. The only thing I would add is that apart from what the Right Honorable Speaker indicated and emphasized, that this bill is based on our own 1992 Constitution, and he mentioned a number of clauses, I would like to add Article 17(4) of the 1992 Constitution. Basically, Article 17 says that...
Sheila, just to interrupt, sorry, but they said that for the purposes of recording, they can't hear, so each of you would kindly have to walk here briefly. We have less than 5 minutes, so you talk very quickly for Eli. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry.
Thank you very much. And as I indicated, all protocols observed. Good morning to everyone. And I was just emphasizing that we've already heard a lot about the justification for this bill already. And I was emphasizing the fact that the Right Honorable Speaker mentioned the 1992 Constitution, mentioned a number of key articles in it, and I wanted to add Article 17(4) is one of the key provisions. Article 17 basically prohibits discrimination on the basis of gender, but 17(4) says that there is nothing wrong if Parliament comes up with a law where it's been found that there's been discrimination in an area of social, economic imbalance. And therefore, one of the things we stand on as a coalition in pushing for this bill is Article 17(4) of our 1992 Constitution. In addition to all the international human rights obligations that Ghana is a state party to and is responsible for, the key being the Sustainable Development Goals, Goal 5, which is on gender equality, which seeks to achieve gender parity in all aspects of life in countries that are state parties by the year 2030. That's what we are working towards. In terms of the role of civil society has played a very big role in working towards or seeing this bill come into being. We've been part of a lot of civil society organizations have undertaken research. You'll be hearing from the Women Manifesto as to the work that they've been doing. There was a Women in Public Life study sometime in the 1990s, which was also led by one of our members, one of our key members, Mrs. Elizabeth Apalu. And they did research in different parts of public life and came up with a recommendation for an affirmative action bill. Others have also done so. Then civil society has also participated actively in the drafting process for this bill. Since 2011, when a technical team was put together, this technical team was made up of representation from civil society. It was a 21-member committee. It had members of political parties as members. It had some people from MDAs as members. It also had a few people from academia. But like I said, civil society played a key role. This particular team did that study finding out what others have done. And then we actually did some research, went around all the 10 regions of Ghana to hold public fora, collate information, put proposals together. And those proposals served as the basis for the actual drafting. You've heard that work started a long time ago, but then it was in 2011 that the technical team started work. And we came up with a number of drafts of the bill. The very first draft was in 2013. And we kept working with the ministry, originally Ministry of Women and Children Affairs, which became the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection throughout the process. And interestingly, I think the Honorable Speaker indicated that, or some of the earlier speakers indicated that we don't only need a law, but we also need something to ensure that it's properly implemented. One of the things which the President along the line insisted was to see an implementation plan and a communication plan for the bill. We were all part of the team that helped to put these together. The third thing civil society has been doing is advocacy and sensitization. We've been doing that throughout the country with different groups of people, including with members of parliament and the rest. Then we realized at a point that we couldn't do it as individual NGOs. And there was a need for us to come together as a coalition so that together we could all work together to achieve something. like I said, before then, we had all been working sometimes together, sometimes in groups, but the formal coalition was established in 2019. And since then, we've been working as a group, and we are still hoping that some of the bigger research and advocacy organizations like IDEG will join us so that together we can fight to get this law in place. It's been realized in Ghana that any law that has gender undertones is always a challenge. We have the experience of the domestic action bill, which then became law, where we also had to come together as a coalition. So we have a prior experience, and we are hoping that together we can work towards this. In terms of challenges, the coalition has faced challenges with funding. We keep working at it. This year, we've had a strategy meeting and come up with a plan of action for the year 2021 to 2023, where we are hoping the law will be in place. So we are hoping that will be supported to enable us to carry on the various activities that we've put in place. One of the challenges has also been frequent changes in ministers. Since the actual drafting started in 2011, up to the year 2021, there's been 6 different ministers for gender, children, and social protection. So you can imagine, consistency in pushing things have been a problem. We are hoping that there'll be some stability to ensure we get what we are looking for. There have also been a few disagreements on some key parts of the bill, which has brought a few divisiveness amongst us, but we've been working slowly at trying to address it. One is the implementation body for the bill. The bill indicates that the current draft of the bill says that there will be a gender equality committee, which will be based at the Ministry of Gender, Children, and Social Protection. In the original draft, a proposal was made for a gender equality commission, which would be an independent body, which would be focused 100% on this issue. But the ministry responsible didn't agree with this, so there's been a lot of back and forth. But the current draft of the bill, which is the 2021, which we understand is before cabinet, has the gender equality committee based on the Ministry of Gender. So I'm sure that we'll keep talking about it until the bill is finalized. Again, the provisions dealing with gender equality in political parties is also not deemed to be very strong enough and biting enough. I think the Honorable Speaker mentioned it. There's a need to also strengthen that. The penalties in the bill too are not also very strong. Then there are a few intersectional issues which has also brought a bit of problems among some of us. For instance, we know that the issue of disability is an intersectional issue. We have women who are discriminated against already, and then women who have disability also have like a double discrimination. So they have insisted on having special provisions dealing with them, even though we were of the view that the Disability Act addresses their issues. We are still talking to them, and we are still hoping that we'll be able to reach a consensus. The law itself defines women to include women with disability, but the issue is, do we want to see more provisions to see to their interest? So we are hoping that the executive will put this issue as on the front burner. Parliament, we've been there a number of times. They said once the bill comes, they'll process it quickly. The challenge has been, this law has been in cabinet for a long time, and as we heard, it's been tweaked here and there, etc. We are really praying that this issue will come on the front burner, and so that we'll see the law in place within a short while. We know that during Honorable Nanoye's time, it actually went to Parliament, even though it didn't go through the process because we're getting towards elections. So we are hoping, we've been told that the ministry has taken the bill before cabinet, and they are waiting for final approval before it's taken to Parliament. We've heard from our Honorable Speaker that they are expecting it before the end of this year. And we are hoping that once it gets there, it will be processed very quickly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Auntie Ruth, given the fact that we are running very short on time, I'll quickly invite the Spanish ambassador to join you here. And then the Rwandan ambassador will also join, and we'll quickly have the interactive session as well. And then while we have the interactive session, you're welcome, together with Nanoye, to chip in whatever you want to. Nanoye, we are interested in knowing what the processes were like when you tried to push the bill at the cabinet level, and to share the Ghanaian story and all that. And so we have Her Excellency, the Spanish ambassador, sitting up, and she will chip in with bits and pieces of the Spanish experience as we have the interactive session at this stage. And the Rwandese ambassador will soon join her up front. Unfortunately, I'm told we have mic issues, so I don't know how we're going to shuffle our mics. But our interactive session starts right away. So if the there's anyone in the audience who has anything to say. Or with the associates who are monitoring the Zoom account, if there are any questions online which would be brought to my attention, this is the time for the interactive session. We want to use the opportunity as judiciously as possible before our Right Honorable Speaker takes leave of us. And also in adherence to COVID protocol, we are not supposed to stay here beyond a certain time. And so at this stage, it's just interaction. So if you have something to say, or a question to ask, or a suggestion to make, this is the time. We are going to use the next 15 minutes for that. Okay.
So thank you very much. Since I'm not seeing any hands, I think I'll make a short intervention. Right Honorable Speaker, Your Excellencies, good morning to you all. And just to speak to some of the strengths of the journey towards promulgation of an Affirmative Action Act. So one key strength, like Right Honorable and Sheila have spoken to, is our legal framework and also our gender policy that has helped us have a justification for passage of the Affirmative Action Act, particularly the Constitutional Review Commission process, where government issued a white paper and reiterated the need for Ghana to have an affirmative action bill. In terms of challenges, like Sheila said, it's the male dominance and the masculinity of our political system, and the type of our political system being the first past the post system. So when you look at even the Fourth Republic from 1992 until now, you'd realize that we haven't gone beyond 14% representation, and we have fallen short of the 30% representation. When you also look at the laws that have been passed in relation to gender, you see that it takes forever. So the domestic violence bill was drafted somewhere in 2001, Sheila, and then it took us up to 2007. But even with that, we had to go and sleep at Independence Square. We had to do mass mobilization. Right to information took about 20 years. Disability Act the same. Property rights of spouses was first drafted in about 2010. It's been 10 years. It has lapsed again, and it will have to start the process. We even want an amendment to the Interstate Succession Act, or the 1990, is it 1985? We just want an amendment. From 2010 up till now, we haven't been able to. The underlying factor is that the law has to do with women or persons or vulnerable persons. And when it has to do with women, then it takes forever. So we need to also interrogate that. So in terms of the Affirmative Action Bill, we need to get angrier, we need to do mass mobilization, and we really need to support with finance, with cash. Support the coalition and also support the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection. We actually had to get Sheila, Mrs. Akpalu, and other leading women to go from ministry to ministry to speak and lobby the ministers who were on the legal committee of cabinet. Some of my colleagues and I actually had to draft the proposals ourselves. Benedicta Ama, Akita, and Cynthia Nimo, and I, and a few others actually had to sit in the office and draft because there was no money for us to actually draft. And this is how we even got the proposals submitted to the Attorney General. And so we need to ensure that government prioritizes this bill. And the problem is that it's going through the process, it's not being prioritized, so it will take forever. I had to designate one civil servant, Jifa, and every week she would go to the Attorney General's department to check on progress and submit a report to the Chief Director of the Ministry of Gender. And that is how we were even able to get the bill to Parliament
for first reading, and then it lapsed. So we need to follow on these processes, and we all need to support. It's important that we get the affirmative action bill so that we have equal or equitable representation of women across board, across all the sectors. Thank you.
Thank you. Pardon? Yes, I will. I would like to invite the Rwandese High Commissioner. She's here, so she'll take her seat, and while she sits down, Dr. Rosemary Sakutin will briefly talk about her experience. Then afterwards, we'll invite the Spanish ambassador to very briefly talk about hers. The Rwandese ambassador will also very briefly talk, and then we continue our interaction. Dr. Mensah Kuti.
So thank you very much for the opportunity. And also thank you, IDEG, and the Affirmative specifically, and the right honorable speaker, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, for this opportunity. I think that for us women, anytime we have a space like this, anytime we have a space like this to raise our voices, we feel very honored because we don't usually get it that way. And the fact that an organization like IDEG is throwing its weight behind the work the women's movement has done over the years. And indeed, when the executive director was talking, when he was speaking, he actually made reference to the trailblazing roles of different women within the women's movement regarding the importance of addressing women's rights and gender equality as part of our governance system and as part of our democratic governance system. For us as women, the Women's Manifesto Initiative was just one of several other initiatives that Ghanaian women have considered as relevant for the promotion of our rights and also the realization of gender equality. And sometimes when you see faces such as ours, we forget the many hidden faces that made it possible. And I think that what stands out very clearly is the interconnected initiatives that took place at the time to ensure that we have a document that we all value as the basis for promoting women's rights in Ghana. At that time, we had the Domestic Violence Coalition working. The Network for Women's Rights Organizations was firmly established and it was working. And therefore, these kinds of initiatives really made it possible for the Women's Manifesto Initiative to stand on those two initiatives, for it to garner support and also become relevant within the Ghanaian space. So women's agency is really what made the Women's Manifesto possible. And today we can say that the document has been utilized across board, not only in Ghana here, because when we started, we thought we were learning from other countries, such as South Africa and so on. But very soon, they said that the comprehensive organizational structures that we established and worked with all over the country was something that was phenomenal, and it was a best practice. And so over the years, it has become a symbol of what women can do, and specifically what Ghanaian women can do. We see the document as a political document, but it is also non-partisan. And what it does is that it sets out critical issues of concern to women in Ghana and makes demands for addressing them. Now, in 2016, the document had become 10 years old, and so we had a celebration. And the celebration took the form of actually bringing the women at the lowest level together for us to revisit some of the issues that were contained in the first document. We never want to touch what is contained in the first document because it was a discussion of issues of concern to women at a moment in time. And so what we did was to bring in new issues and to examine the extent to which the demands contained in the first document have been addressed. Sadly, to inform you, many of the demands had not been addressed, even though a few had been addressed. So we have the second edition, which is dated 2016. We want to start a process of reviewing the second document to have a third one within the context of the work we are doing around the affirmative action law. In terms of the relationship with the affirmative action coalition, I think Sheila must be applauded because she came up with the idea that all of us as organizations are working in silos again. After the momentum of the Women's Manifesto, the domestic violence activism and all of that, we were back into working in silos. So she came with the idea that why don't we form a coalition? And you know, once you come up with a good idea, they give you the hat to wear. And that's how come Sheila became the convener. But Abantu remains the, the host of the Affirmative Action Coalition in the same way as we host the Women's Manifesto Coalition and other coalitions as well. I think that so many organizations have done very well. We have IEA, which has also worked on the affirmative action bill, IDEG, and so many other organizations, our own organizations, FIDA, Gender Center, WILDAF, and so on. And the legal aspects, I think it's very important that Sheila is a legal person because some of us, we are very strong when it comes to the women's movement building component. But in terms of the lawmaking process, and I think the speaker was very candid in informing us about the cumbersome nature of the legal processes. And so we are hoping that with the coalition in place now, we'll be able to surmount all these challenges and then be able to get it into law. But for us as women, it is not just about the passage of an affirmative action law. I think Nana Oye underlined it very clearly when she talked about the patriarchal nature of our society and the way politics has become in this country. We are talking about a society that needs to transform. We are talking about a society that must be truly democratic. The passage of an affirmative action bill into law alone will not assure us of such a situation in the country. So for us, we are talking about electoral reforms. We are talking about a society that does not see women as just additions, but women who have something concrete to contribute. The politics of insults and all of those things must be addressed if the affirmative action law, because if we are not careful, the law could be in place and women will say we don't want to have any positions because the experiences of women who hold positions in governance are horrifying stories that will shock anybody if you really get close to them. And so we want a system change, a structural change to make governance system attractive, not only for women, but also for men who are interested in leadership positions in this country. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and that's to me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mensah Kute. On that note, we'll invite the Rwandese High Commissioner to kindly, which one will be best? If you want to come here, yes. She would give us, her country has 61% females, the only country in Africa where majority of the parliamentarians are women. In the world. I stand corrected, in the world. And so we are glad to have her here to tell us firsthand. Unfortunately, time is not on our side, so you summarize it and during the interaction we'll have more.
Okay. Thank you very much, moderator. Right Honorable Speaker, my dear sisters and brothers, colleagues, diplomatic corps, maybe I could remove this, hopefully. Make me a bit. Distinguished panelists and various leaders of this beautiful country, good morning to you all. I want first of all to say that Rwanda
really cherishes a great relationship with Ghana. Tomorrow, we will be remembering and honoring the lives of our loved ones that were lost in the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994. At that time, Ghana stood with us. As you may know, the UN had decided to reduce the numbers, but the government of Ghana decided to stay with us, and the number of peacekeepers that was there was way beyond what the UN was required of them. So from that moment, because they did a lot that they could to save lives, tomorrow the then second in command, retired General Anyidoho, will be with us to give his story. I hope you'll be able to follow online. I don't want to use this to talk more about that, but I just wanted to start there to tell you that when it comes to Ghana, we really cherish our relationship. I've been here for only 1 year, but I want to tell you that you are very warm people. My president has a great relationship with his brother, His Excellency President Akufo-Addo. Your government has been supportive, and we have had since that time great cross-learning. We've shared experiences. We've learned in the decentralization, IT use, resource mobilization, so many things. It's all work in progress. We appreciate that. So I'm here to really humbly share with you what our journey has been like, not necessarily to teach or to tell Ghanaians what they should do, because that's not our approach to things. We also really don't. We learn from others, but finally we make our choices. So it will be your choice to choose what you want to do. Now, I want to thank you so much for organizing this event, and thank you so much for inviting me, EU and IDEG. Rwanda's story on gender equality is anchored in our political ideology. The liberation struggle and ideology of Rwanda identified that the primary cause of our problems was disunity, was division. Division, discrimination, and marginalization in all its forms. So as a way of really addressing the root cause of that problem, our political ideology is clearly anchored into upholding unity and equality in all its forms. And that is like the cornerstone of what Rwanda Patriotic Front brought forward, to the extent that even as we went through and addressed the challenge that I talked about of the stopping of the genocide and following through of the healing of our country, that principle has been upheld. And women have had a really significant recognized position in the unity, reconciliation, justice system, revealing the truth, development, and that has been a cornerstone. I'm emphasizing that because for us, the legal reform was a tool to get us to anchor our principle or core value of unity and dignity for all Rwandans. Women and men equally, young and old, and people from different regions, all in front of the law or anywhere else being really treated equally. So out of that, and you know, sometimes it surprises me how people sometimes question the democracy of Rwanda. Allow me briefly just to explain that. Because in our system of governance, it's so localized that the first step of parliament is at community level. Every month, you've heard about Umuganda. Omugana is a point when we meet every month, the last Saturday of the month, not to do community work. That is only part of it, because that is, if that's what we've chosen. We'll have identified an issue that we want to talk about, or a problem that we need to address as a community. We address it, but we have a time, like an hour or so, where community members will sit and talk about what they see as their pertinent challenges or even opportunities, and government will share what they see as upcoming policies. So information is shared at that level, and as I said, when it came to Unity, that's how it was grown, and that is how we really got feedback from people as what they saw as what is Unity like, what is discrimination like, and how does the law support like really dealing with it. So come 2003, the Constitution was enacted, but that Constitution was developed through a very participatory process. Through a referendum, Rwandans chose that women should have a role in leadership that is clearly enshrined in the Constitution. And then from there, the other laws followed, and the institutional and the structure that maybe I can explain, elaborate later. But quickly, just to say that a Constitution, and I want to thank so much what the Speaker and the other speakers have been continuing to talk about, because it's clear that I think there is a commitment to follow through, but somehow, somewhere, that needs to be maybe articulated and also concluded. So in our case, it was clear that 30% of women would be, in our Constitution. It unambiguously pitches gender equality and women empowerment at the core of its fundamental provisions, and provides for a minimum quota of 30% of women's representation in decision-making organs. I'm one of them. I'm a fruit of affirmative action. That's how I moved from being a veterinarian. I was a veterinarian serving farmers in 2003. When the farmers asked me to represent them in Parliament, and through this affirmative action, I was able to get to policy-making decisions. Has it been easy? Well, no, because I was not equipped. I was a technocrat. I'm not I'm not a negotiator. I want to deal with my stuff that I was trained in, and I don't. But because, as I mentioned to you, there was an identification that this is needed and supported and necessary, there is an enabling environment to support the legal framework. Now, beyond the Constitution, the other laws, like the organic law on governing political organizations and politicians, this calls for the respect of gender equality, equal opportunities for both men and women into elective mandate and government duties. And that goes on to other things. And that goes into the programs. That goes into the long-term vision of the country. And the next step was, okay, how do you support, how do you mobilize women to take advantage of this enabling environment? Again, there is an institutional and structural process that really has been very supportive to us. Initially, even actually some of our development partners were questioning this, the quality of, or the capacity of women being supported through affirmative action, how effective. I remember in 2004, we went to different sister parliaments, and we were toughly handled by fellow women. So there is and I learned that there is a moment to sow. And when you sow, you nurture. You don't sow a seed and start uprooting it because it doesn't have fruit. You have to sow, and then you nurture it. So within that system, there has to be people who support women as they stand out, as they speak maybe and falter and fumble, and we hold one another so that we can, stand firm on our feet. And that is really important. I want again to say, because we have a leadership that does what it says. And that, I think, is a very key thing for us. We had the political will to support us. And with that political will, I wanted to say that there is also shared responsibility. I think that was also mentioned again by the earlier speakers, because the political will of our president is unquestionable. He's a he for she, together with all the leadership. But importantly, too, the other leaders. Ghana is so strong on the cultural values, which is a very powerful thing. I think together with that, and you're religious people. So where are our religious leaders, our cultural leaders, our influencers of society in this debate? Because once we have them, then the mindset change begins really to genuinely move towards enabling empowerment of women. So with that, we needed institutions to support us. So there's the Ministry of Women Empowerment and Family Promotion. There is the National Women's Council that follows up on the implementation of gender policies, mobilizing women to participate in development programs, empowering us, organizing training and stuff like that. Then we have got the Gender Monitoring Office that will monitor whatever was agreed upon, whether it's actually being implemented. That is an accountability platform that really says, okay, if Parliament is supposed to pass this bill, what happened? If executive is supposed to have done this, what has happened? How about private sector? How about local government? So that creates a very objective and independent way of helping us to follow through and learn from one another. There are also platforms of sharing experience, and especially I think for Parliament, we have a platform for women parliamentarians that was an anchor for us to grow in. I think the time is limited. Maybe we can talk about the rest later. Many thanks for your kind attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Aisa, for sharing the Rwandese experience. I'd quickly invite Her Excellency Mrs. Alicia Perez de Pulga, the Ambassador of Spain to Ghana, to also share with us what the Spanish experience has been. And then we'll have our interaction.
Good morning, Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament, Executive Director of IDEG and IDEG team, Deputy EU Ambassador, dear Peter, dear colleagues, and members of the civil society advocacy organizations, Affirmative Action, members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen. How long will it take before a 50-50 gender balance is reached among men and women in politics and governance? Well, according to a recent study of the Council of Municipalities and Regions of Europe, at the rate of changes that are taking place in our continent, the balance will be achieved in the political sphere in 107 years. So there is a long way to go for all of us. The full, substantive, and effective participation of women and equal opportunities for leadership at all decision-making levels is at the center of my country's commitment to the 2030 Agenda. Women's participation is essential for good governance and policy making. I think it is no longer acceptable for the political sphere to be dominated by only one half of the population. This is Spain's commitment as a member also of the European Union, which equality is one of its guiding principles ever since the Treaty of Amsterdam, and it's included in every policy and action. And also it is recognized in all the international treaties. We have not mentioned them, but just to put an example, the International Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women. In Spain, obviously, the right to equality is enshrined at a constitutional level. It's a constitutional mandate, as it is in Ghana. In Article 14, we have a clear respect for the right to equality and non-discrimination, and the obligation of the public powers to promote the conditions so that equality is real and effective. But apart from this constitutional mandate, apart from the legal recognition in the highest law that there could be in a country, more has to be done. Because decades after the adoption of our Constitution in 1978, we saw that there still was gender violence, wage discrimination, higher female unemployment, and a very low presence of women in positions of political, social, cultural, and economic responsibilities. So it required new legal instruments. And what could be equivalent to this important bill that we are discussing today for affirmative action, Spain, or the Spanish Parliament, adopted a very important legal instrument, which is the Law for the Effective Equality of Women and Men, on 22nd March 2007. This law introduced important changes to achieve real and effective equality and eliminate all forms of discrimination. And gender equality became the guiding principle for all public administrations at national, regional, and local level. Important measures were introduced, such as equality in public employment and the balanced presence of women and men in all public bodies and management positions of responsibility. Also, it established a general framework for the adoption of so-called positive actions in order to make the constitutional right to equality be effective and correct obvious situations of inequality of rights with respect to men. And a very important measure was the balanced presence of women and men in the electoral lists. And this required a reform of the electoral law. But since then, we have a balanced composition. That is, women cannot represent less than 40%, or man cannot represent less than 40%, and neither of the genders can represent more than 60% in one list. Actually, most of the political parties now go to a 50-50% list. Thanks to these measures and others that have also been adopted in the field, which I will not elaborate because we don't have time and because it deals with other very important issues for women's rights, which is gender, violence, for example, reconciliation of family life, personal life with work. Were also adopted, and also other measures in the private sector, because still the presence of women in executive or management positions in the private sector is not above 28%. And there's also an important or less visibility of women in STEM careers. And so we have visibility plans to also promote the presence of women in these sectors. But with these actions, and I have to say that what we defend, or what is obviously an equal participation of women, but I would like to highlight that what I think is important is a balanced representation. This is not something against man, or that women are better than man. I think men and women should work together. I think it enriches society. It obviously strengthens democracy. I think we should have men and women in parliament and at all decision-making levels. And I'm not going to, I think it wouldn't be really appropriate to start listing all the qualities and skills that women can bring to governance or to the public sphere, because I think women and men both have fantastic qualities. And the important issue is that they have the same opportunities, that they have access to education, that they have access to responsibilities in decision-making processes of their own country. But with these actions, and I will very quickly just like to highlight that political leaders in our country represent 36%, taking into account all levels, that is local, municipalities, regional, what we call autonomous communities, and national level. We are above the European average, but we are the 8th country in Europe. There is still other countries. I think the country with the highest political participation in Europe is Iceland. And then Sweden is one of the top countries as well. In any case, in Spain, we have made great progress in all executive branches and at all levels. Just to quickly highlight a few issues, we'll say that the Spanish government stands out together with the French and the Swedish as one of the most equal in Europe. Women represent 52% of members of the government, and the deputy ministers are women. And it's important that the women have portfolios that are traditionally more linked to men, for example, like economy, finances, and digital transformation, defense, trade and industry, ecological transition, or education. Regarding the legislative power, the branch, women represent 45% of members of parliament, and the two speakers, I was telling the right honorable speaker before, the two speakers of the lower house and the upper house, the Senate, are women. In the regional parliaments, the percentage is slightly higher, is 45.4%. And across the continent, only the regional parliaments of France with 49% and Sweden with 48.2 are more equal than the Spanish. It is at the local level, and I think that our dear colleague from Rwanda and also other members of the panel have highlighted, it's at the local level that the differences are greatest. City councils are the least equal institutions. Only 35.8% of their members are councillors. And mayors, only 21.3%. Let me say that at a European level, the presence of women in local corporations has increased, but it's still low, 29%. And 15.4% of mayors are women in Europe, which is a very, very low number. Lastly, in the judiciary, in the judicial power, 43% of judges are women. So we have to keep on fighting. Parity has not been achieved yet, but there are many obstacles, and I think we have to look at this from a very holistic, have a holistic approach towards this problem. Legal instruments are important, but we have to tackle all the other areas. And I think that it's important to train and promote women's participation in the political sphere, particularly at a local level, as has been highlighted before, because this is where you really are formed as a political leader and in negotiation and a decision and making decisions. And this is something that is not difficult to do. We also have to adopt measures in reconciliation. According to the European Institute of Gender Equality, only 1/3 of men do household chores in Europe. Still, it's incredible, but it's still. And 8 out of 10 women do. So measures like we recently in Spain, we adopted longer paternity leave for men whenever they have a child, so that they can share the responsibilities with a woman. And obviously, making sure that gender violence, domestic violence, is tackled. We also have, and I forgot to mention before, the law also establishes administrative units, a commission, equality units in every ministry to make sure a gender strategic plan. There is a whole structure that I will not elaborate on now, but to really keep on working on this and promoting. And lastly, I think we have to work, and I think in Ghana this has been one of the main issues, but it is still in Europe as well. I think there are deep-rooted and perennial structural reasons that maybe hinder the participation of women in the political sphere. The representation of the masculine and feminine identities on many occasions still instill the idea that woman does not have political legitimacy. It's really a change of mindset. It will take a generation, most particularly. I do notice a difference in the younger generations in Spain. I mean, I can see it with my daughters, for example. They have been brought up, knowing that they're an equal citizen and that they can share and participate in decision making in their own country just as much as men. And I believe that balance, equality is important, but balance is more, I think, for me, is more important. I think we have to put the two together at all levels of public decision and at all branches of the government. Men can bring some skills, women can bring others, and together I think it really strengthens our democracy, it strengthens our society, and it makes our society much more equal for all of us, women, men, girls, and boys. Thank you.
My attention has been drawn to a very major omission on my part. The chairperson of the Committee on Gender in Parliament is here. A lady I really respect, and she's one of our youngest parliamentarians, Honorable Francisca Otim Mensah. Apologies, you are welcome. Please, your seat is over here, so please come here. We are going to discuss the way forward, and so you would need to take input and give us your strategies. So, Honorable Francisca, as we clap, kindly walk majestically up here. Thank you very much. On that note, we've had very interesting submissions from all our panelists. We are going to have a very brief interactive session. Some people online have sent questions, and we also have our audience here. I'll take 3 questions at this point. First hand, Auntie Joanna, second hand. Can someone help me with sending the microphones around? I think there's a third hand at the back, and we're done for now for the first set of questions. Can microphones be kindly sent to these people? The 3 I called. Pardon? Or if you don't mind, then you can come in front. I am limited. If you can come in front, I'll be very grateful. Kindly introduce yourself very briefly, and then go ahead with your submission.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. My name is Nanaya Champim Jantwa. I'm the General Secretary of the Convention's People's Party. My question is, I think I'm a bit new to all this. I'm a technocrat turned into a politician. So I just want to find out the 14.5% in Parliament, is it the benchmark? Because I believe there are other women in governance, CEOs, ministers, deputy ministers. Are they not also included? Because I also heard the Right Honorable Speaker commending the former First Lady, Nana Kunedu Rawlings, who did a lot. So women like that, are they also not part of the whole equation? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Auntie Nanaya. Mrs. Sopare, and then the hand at the back. Mrs. Sopare first, and then the hand at the back.
Thank you very much. My name is John Opari, a part of the coalition. Because Honorable Speaker is here, my question is very simple. Please, can you tell us exactly what it will take to move the bill from Cabinet to Parliament? Because the battle is in Cabinet. It is not in Cabinet. Has been too much. So please, as you are here, and we know we have been given the opportunity a number of times that it is on the list of bills to be discussed in Parliament. And then no show. So please, as the leader in Parliament, I want to know exactly what it will take to move the bill from Cabinet to Parliament so that at least the debate can start and it won't stall again. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. There was the last. Please, after the 3 questions, I've been asked that the Right Honorable Speaker has to take lead, and we have to take a group picture before he takes lead. And so after the 3 questions have been addressed, we'll take the group picture, and then we'll take a brief break, a 10-minute break, and come and end our session.
Thank you so much. Although I had other things to say, now that I've seen our Honorable, my name is Janet Nabla, I'm the General Secretary of PNC. Now that I've seen the Honorable Speaker, I think I have a question for him. When you look at our Constitution, Article 17, Section 4 of the Constitution, it is stated that when we have problems of inequalities in Parliament, then Parliament have to take initiative to make sure that it strengthens those inequalities. It is in the Constitution of Ghana. We have 40 women in Parliament, and yet the entire Parliament comprised of 275. I've never heard anyone, I've never heard the speaker, both previous and present speakers, say anything about that clause in our constitution. We need to give credence to the constitution that is governing this country. If the constitution have made a provision that there should be gender balance and there's no gender balance and we have parliament, I don't understand. So I thank God that a speaker is here. My last my last question has to do with Dr. Kutin. Dr. Kutin said something that was very important. You see, we don't have money to be able to disseminate the affirmative action bill, like to go to the grassroots level to give information about the bill. But we always hear previous and present government saying that they love women. You love women, but when it comes to the budget of women, it is the smallest of all the budgets. How do you love us when you don't want to give us money to be able to embark on sensitization programs? So that love must be defined by giving us budgets that will show that we are really loved and cared for.
Thank you. Very briefly, Auntie Joanna's question was directed right at the Right Honorable Speaker himself. Do I have the permission to bring you the mic?
Well, let me thank all of you, and particularly those who have got the opportunity to ask questions. It's unfortunate I have to rush to another function and just try to give answers. Not answers, really. Try to share my thoughts on the issues that have been raised. But clearly, listening to the questions that have been raised, it means that we have a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. A coalition, definitely, you can rely on me for support to be able to reach out to all of them. We in Parliament don't determine the women that come to Parliament at all. We don't have any role there. We are just referring to the number of women in Parliament in calculating the percentage. So we didn't take the women outside Parliament into consideration to get the 14.5%. How to get the bill from Cabinet to Parliament, I don't know what role we can play there again. It's just a part of our remit as Parliament to do so. We'll be like you, we'll continue to put pressure on the executive. But I think you may need to be listening more to Parliament, because a lot of my predecessors have made very profound statements about the issue of inequality and the lack of balance in our governance system. Particularly, my immediate predecessor, Professor Michael Quay, was really up on this matter. And he did everything to try and bring up women in governance. I think he knows me very well. I'm very passionate about these things. And now I've given you my background. I've always been working with women. And I think that even when I was a legal practitioner, Nana Oye is here to testify. She was one of my peoples at the law firm. What we insisted was equal representation in our chambers. We took the young men and the young ladies the same. And so gender parity, gender equality, gender balance, and all those things was practiced long before even I went into politics. And so it's something I'm passionate about. Unfortunately, I have to rush to do another function. If not, I'll stay back to try to share my lesson with it. And many of your leaders have worked with me on many issues. And what I can do when the bill comes to Parliament is to try to expedite the process, shorten the process, give some lead speeches to the committee, and the chair person is here of the Gender and Children Committee. We'll definitely not leave it to them alone. We'll also bring in the Committee on Constitutional, Legal, and Parliamentary Affairs. The chair is also here. The honorable member is also here. And we are happy to have learned a lot from this interaction, and I'm sure it will assist us in doing a better job. I thank all of you, and with your kind permission, I may ask for excuse to move out. You take a picture?
Yes, please. You take a picture with the panelists, please.
Okay.
So just the panelists. The speaker and the panelists will take a picture, and while they take the picture, we'll have a coffee break till 12:05, and all other questions will be addressed. And so 12:05, whoever is sitting here will go ahead with the interactive session for 10 minutes, and then we should end by 12:20. So all dignitaries who will be called upon will join the panelists up there and take the group picture. Everyone else is welcome to go for the coffee break. At 12:05, we come back, sit for 10 minutes, and then we have the last session. You're welcome to go for your coffee break for the next 10 minutes.
I want to test all the microphone.
Yes, sir.
Try to.
Mr. Alban Bagbin, right, Honorable Speaker, we are grateful for your presence. We are grateful for your encouragement. We are grateful for your promises.
Try to. Try chip to. Try to. Try test 2. Try 2. Try test 2. Try test 2.
To switch the head mode, it becomes a problem. Because
One, two, three. So try. Try test. Try test 2. Try test 2. Try test 2. Try. Test mic 2. Try 2. Test mic 2.
minute, please. 1 more minute. We are aiming at closing by 12:20. 1 more minute. Kindly return to your seats. I'm taking 3 more questions. Our panelists will address them, and then we close. 1 more minute, please. Panelists, kindly make your way to the front. Make your way to the dais. We are taking 3 more questions for the last 15 minutes of the session. First, questions. Time up. Panelists, kindly return to your seats. 3 more questions. The first 3 to raise their hands will ask the concluding questions. We have, pardon? Okay. The vice presidential aspirant, former vice. Hey, presidential. Hey, sorry. The presidential candidate, former presidential aspirant of the PPP, Madame Bridget Jombenuku, is returning. This is Madame Bridget Jombenuku. She has a comment. Honorable, rightly so.
I'm actually Excellency.
Excellency. I'll do her bidding. Excellency.
Hello, everybody, and thank you very much for this opportunity. The conversations were very inspiring. It's encouraging to know that the Right Honorable Speaker actually is very interested in pushing the Affirmative Action Bill. But I was having a conversation with Her Excellency, the Rwandan ambassador, and I said that there's 2 things that were mentioned, both by the Right Honorable Speaker and Her Excellency, was the fact that the Right Honorable Speaker put it in a way that, well, skills and knowledge will get you there, but character will keep you there. And Her Excellency also mentioned something to do with values. And I think we women express values a little more, or go by values a little more, whereas the men tend to go with knowledge and skills. Now, the knowledge and skills will not ride or cannot become wisdom without the values. So the wisdom is the knowledge and skills, yes, but with the heart. So, and we bring the heart. We seem to think that, oh, women are softs and maybe depend on values are not really, those are soft skills. But indeed, that is what is needed right now in our country. That conversation also about bringing the men on board. I think that most times, and if you look into our political parties, whilst, yes, they put us up for these leadership positions, it's mainly for window dressing. And it's mainly for window dressing. And when you are not able to speak or sound as combative and as competitive, then you can't be the one to hold that office or fill that space for them. We are collaborative people. We cannot ever try to be like the men in their competition. Competition is good, yes, but at the end of the day, we are collaborative people. And I think that governance and democracy is becoming more collaborative than competitive, just for the sake of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Jogbenuku. Thank you, Madam Jogbenuku. At this stage, I'll take the concluding remarks on the way forward from each of the panelists. We are short on time. Each of the panelists will give us a sentence or two about the way forward, concluding remarks, and then I'll give a closing address and then we end it. And so if mics can be given to the panelists. Yes. Nanoye, you can go ahead.
So thank you very much. We've had a fruitful discussion. I was hoping we would speak more to the way forward. You know, what is the way forward? We have a group of committed Ghanaians here. And I believe let's make statements about how we are all going to support passage of the Affirmative Action Bill, how we are going to be part of the coalition. So I use the gas stove analogy. We need to put fire under the advocacy. We need to mobilize, plan, strategize, put resources to this cause. Because if we are able to get this bill passed, it will help us in Ghana. We haven't even discussed the contents of the bill, but it stretches across all sectors. What do we do for gender parity in education? What do we do for gender parity with the security services, public office, and all other sectors? And it is important that we commit ourselves today at this function to support and also be called up to stand and speak for passage of the affirmative action. Let's start it now. It's going to be a struggle, it's going to be hard, but let's commit ourselves now on the way forward. Let's all join the campaign. Thank you.
On my part, I would urge all of us, organizations, political parties, individuals, religious groups, etc., to join this coalition to enable us to push to have this affirmative action bill in place. As has been indicated, if we have an affirmative action bill, it will help all of us to make us the development of Ghana move quicker and in a better way. We would also urge Cabinet to quickly approve it so that it goes to Parliament, because we have been assured that once it gets to Parliament, it will be passed. So we would like to see this bill passed into law within the shortest possible time. Thank you.
Well, I would say that within the coalition, there is a space for everybody. I think all you need is your commitment, because our experience on the ground has taught us that when you have a good cause, you actually get the support, and even the funding we talked about, the funding will come for us to do the mobilization, the advocacy, and the capacity building. So there's a space for all of us. And I think that our strength is when we are able to work together as a collective. So let's work together as a collective. Let's take an interest in the activities of the coalition, and together I think we will achieve success. Thank you.
Excellency, the Spanish ambassador, Her Excellency, the Rwandese ambassador. And then afterwards, Honorable Francisca Otin will give us her address and her closing remarks.
I would just like to thank IDEG and the European Union for this invitation, and for giving me the opportunity to share Spain's experiences with all the stakeholders here in Ghana, and all these wonderful women that are, and the men also that are advocating for the passing of the Affirmative Action Bill. I think it has been a very fruitful and enriching discussion, and I will keep on cooperating with all of you in order to advance in women's rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also wish to really thank the European Union IDEG for inviting us. And as I mentioned earlier, Rwanda has enjoyed a really good relationship and cooperation with Ghana. So I'm very humbled and honored to have been part of this seminar. I encourage you to continue with the dialogue because I do believe that when people sit together and forge forward that common good and that platform, which is really a cornerstone of even challenging our own mindsets, that's been governance has been our platform for transformation, and it's work in progress. So I want to encourage you to stay positive and to always look out for good practices and allow yourselves to try them out. So wishing you the very best, and I'll always be available whenever you think I could add something. Thank you so much.
We'll take the remarks from Honorable Frances Cortin. She'll give us her speech and then what she believes is the way forward. Honorable.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I wouldn't want to go on with the speech because I think we are almost done and people are getting tired of hearing the same thing over and over again. I'm particularly happy to be part of this seminar and to learn a lot from strong women, share their experiences, and then also have other people also ask questions. It's an eye-opening, and I'm hoping this stakeholder engagement will keep going on, at least till the right thing is being done. One thing that is very clear here that I must say I observe is the fact that almost everyone here is interested in the passage of the Affirmative Action Bill, which the Speaker clearly stated Parliament stands because he is the head of the legislature. So if he clearly states his commitment to the passage of the bill, it clearly tells you Parliament is also enthused to pass this bill. I quite remember the last time Parliament had a stakeholder engagement on this. That was in 2017. In 2017, that was when the Honorable Oti Kujaba was the minister. That was the time Parliament, we had the Women Caucus, if I should put it that way, had that stakeholder engagement. We're hoping there could be further engagement. Unfortunately, I think it ended there. But then I just want us to have a better picture that Parliament is not doing things to delay the bill. We want all of us collectively to come on board and support Parliament pass this bill so that at least, just as the Speaker said, by the end of the year, we are hoping that we have this law. And then today, being here, I've learned a lot, especially from the Rwanda ambassador and then all other speakers. If you look at the way they've been able to put things in place in their countries, and it's helping them, yielding results. And that is something that I think as a parliamentary committee, we will definitely engage you further. I'm sure you heard the Speaker whisper that to you that he will definitely send us again to meet you so that we can have more deliberation on this particular topic. I was supposed to speak on the processes of the passage of the Affirmative Action Bill, but because of time, I wouldn't be able to go over the entire process. But one thing is clear, that the Constitution, Article 106, clearly gives Parliament the power to pass laws, which are in line with the principles of the Constitution. And clearly, the Affirmative Action Bill is in line with the Constitution. And so I believe the Speaker's commitment to expedite the process, I'm hoping that even though it's with Cabinet, it will come back to Parliament as soon as possible. Then we can have the first reading and then further deliberation on the debate. Sometimes the difficulty we have is when there are so much elapses in the bill. Parliament tends to spend so much time on a particular bill especially when it has a lot of corrections that has to be made. And so it is important that I know our women group has been supporting the Ministry for Gender, Children and Social Protection. And we have another experienced politician, Nana Oye, who is equally been part of this process. And I'm hoping, let us all come on board. It shouldn't be a one person's battle. It's a battle for us all, not for just women, but the men as well. And I'm happy the chairperson for Constitutional League is a man. He's here supporting this cause. We are going to work on this bill with him. So let us all come together and then help the minister or the ministry in connection with Parliament bring this law into existence. So, honorable members and members here present, I wouldn't take much of your time, but I would say I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and I've equally learned a lot. I'm hoping next time invitation will be extended to other committee members so that they can equally learn from this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Every good thing must come to an end. And so has what I thought was one of the most exciting mornings in my life. It's come to an end. I'm still happy. I hope the happiness will continue for the weekend. But thank you all for your participation. It's been an enriching period. It's been a good interactive session. It's obvious there's a lot we didn't touch on, and there's a lot which we can deliberate on in the future. We want to acknowledge the work of all the people who have worked behind the scenes in the various organizations, behind the scenes at the district levels, behind the scenes abroad, behind the scenes as donors, all the people who have worked to ensure that today's program has been a success. And not just today's program, but everything concerning the Affirmative Action Bill and soon to be law. We thank all of you for taking time off your busy schedules to make today possible, for the good time we've had. I hope you've all left records of your contact so that IDEG can contact you again in the future. Panelists, you are kindly asked to remain in your seat for the next 5 minutes after it ends, because I'm told some photographers and media people would like to take some pictures and have some brief interviews with you. So panelists, you're encouraged to remain in your seat. Otherwise, every good thing comes to an end. And so, yes, we've come to the end of the meeting. Thank you all for everything. Bye-bye. We didn't start with prayer. They are all there, so see them quickly.